Back in the 1990s and early 2000s, we had this guy named Jack Thompson. He was an attorney who had this real shtick for video games. Of course, he would go out and protest every chance he got. The mainstream media would trot him out there anytime a shooting happened for him to basically blame video games, rather than looking at the parents who, let's just say, put their child in front of a video game all day, thus, therefore, the video game becoming their parent, thus also at the same time eventually desensitizing them to the world around them. There's this key word, it's called moderation. Moderation basically means that you do it whenever it's fun. You don't do it all the time. You balance your life out. You go outside. You meet people. You socialize. You basically find ways to balance gaming with that. Same thing, of course, tends to coincide with anime, pop culture, movies, that sort of thing there. The key is moderation. The key is the ability to balance things out. Now, you saw the thumbnail, and you're saying to yourself, Matt Walsh versus anime, gaming, pop culture, all that stuff. And, of course, he eventually did a video basically telling people to stay away from video games. Now, me, I'm the type of person that thinks that video games can be good, they can be useful, but I also think that it's not so much the game itself that's bad, but actually the person who allows said individual to play it all day and night. Now, this right here is not a common video essay. Of course, there's going to be some things running in the cutaway, and as you guys can obviously tell, I'm not exactly talking on script. Most of you guys who subscribe to my channel know that from time to time I can go off script and say things the wrong way. So there's occasional slip up here and there. I want to go ahead and say right away, I apologize for that right there, but please bear with me as I explain this topic. This is something that I think the conservatives, especially ones my age, should not exactly fall into, that there being the trap of passing judgment on gamers and those who like anime. I'll talk about anime a little bit more later on in the video, but I want to focus primarily on video games. Now, Jack Thompson was somebody who, let's just say, he found a way to almost relive the days of the Satanic Panic. And I understood the reasons why. I came from a family that also believed somewhat the Satanic Panic itself, but eventually I got older, listened to a lot more music, played a lot more video games, and after a while, you just got to grow up. Parents just kind of let somebody figure it out on their own, and eventually I did. Of course, most of the music I listened to in that time frame was actually classic rock from the 70s and the 80s. I'm still a stickler for AC/DC, Motley Crue, Metallica, the older style rock. Of course, this also led to 90s rap, all kinds of great movies, all kinds of great films. After a while, you begin to get used to seeing certain things on television. After a while, you eventually grow up and you realize that it's just a game. It's just a movie. It's just a song. Doesn't really mean a whole lot. And eventually, you just learn not to do the things that are being said in the song itself, which, by the way, as we all know, is mostly done for the purposes of making money. Obviously, musicians have got to sell records somewhere. It doesn't mean I condone everything that they do. And obviously, certain types of video games need to be sold to a certain type of audience. You need to let creators create. Of course, there is this question of when does it go too far? So this little beef that occurred a while back between Jeremy the Quartering and Matt Walsh made me think about things from a different perspective, from a different light. It made me think to myself, maybe you should lean more into pop culture itself and actually discuss the reasons why it is that social justice warrior messaging is plaguing the American people, why it is that's going after the youth. Now, right off the bat, you probably think to yourself, well, these games have got some SJW messaging in it, but let me go ahead and say this. Before you actually go off and say that games are bad or movies are bad, I want you to know right now that there are several, I'm talking hundreds, maybe even thousands of YouTube channels and commentators out there who rail against pop culture and wokeness in pop culture and gaming. Some of these include Razor Fists. Some of these also include, who else? Quartering. Yellow Flash is pretty good. There's that Umbrella guy. He's pretty solid. Even Tim Pool talks about it. The reason why they're doing this is because they're actually fighting the commies. They're fighting the SJWs on what is actually a much, much more effective front. Then you get someone like Matt Walsh, who practically just says gaming is bad, even though the Daily Wire loves to do these little shorts of him playing video games, and even including Tim Pool and Ben Shapiro in there playing Mario Kart. And of course, you've got Matt Walsh here playing Call of Duty and, of course, killing a friendly civilian. Don't you think that might be a valuable lesson there, Matt, that maybe you might can learn in a video game that maybe ain't a good idea to kill civilians or else maybe it's game over? I mean, I learned that when I was in the military. You have to kind of pick your shots, pick your targets. I mean, there's a lot of good things that you actually can learn from video games, actual honest-to-God lessons. Or the lessons can just be reiterated to you, basically reinforced. But then you get this little bit here.
The right's weird obsession with disavowing video games, anime, and social media is why they will never appeal to most of Gen Z. The base is literally dying off, and most of the voices in the community are actively refusing recruits.
Now let's hear him refute my point. Or do you think he's going to talk about how he has more followers than me?
Well, with all due respect to Jeremy from the Quartering, I think it's safe to say that I have recruited more people into conservatism than he ever has or ever will.
Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, Jeremy started another beef. It's actually kind of funny. Jeremy's actually the one that didn't start the beef. He just simply replied to somebody, and Matt Walsh picked up on it, and next thing you know, the two were kind of going at it once again, like always. Very, very weird. But he is right about something, because Matt would eventually have a response. Let's go ahead and roll this.
All day playing violent video games. But to respond like you disagree with the statement is another thing entirely, but that's what happened. Now, part of the reason why people dig up old tweets is that it gives them, or they believe it gives them, a rhetorical advantage, because they can pluck one statement from the past, completely remove it from the broader context and conversation it was a part of, ignore everything else I may have said about that subject at the time to flesh out my views, and instead they can engage with this one statement as if it was made in a void. You know, it's a clever way to make a straw man out of somebody's argument, even while quoting them directly. It may be a correct quote, like I did say that, but it's only one part of a larger thought. And the larger thought is lost, leaving only the one single piece that you have isolated. For an example of how this works, here's what a guy named George Alexopoulos, who has a relatively large social media following apparently, here's what he tweeted at me yesterday in response to my tweet from 5 years ago. He said, quote, "Video games are a medium, not a genre, you bearded puritanical Philistine. If your child is only playing games where he's murdering people, get educated and buy him Minecraft, Rocket League, Mario Maker. Better yet, play games together and bond. Debate me, Matt." He wants to debate me about this point from 5 years ago. Now,
you know, Jeremy was actually 100% correct. Matt Walsh does this a lot. He has to let you know about his subscribers. He has to let you know that you're below him. He even did that to this guy that he was initially replying to from the New Yorker. Debate me? Now, I've made my thoughts pretty well known on debate. I think debate right now is dead. However, there are some things that, quite frankly, we can have honest-to-God discussions about. And one of those is video games, and why it is that if you attack gamers, a lot of these gamers who, by the way, are tired of social justice warrior messaging, I'd advise you guys to look up Gamergate and everything that happened after that. You would see that there are a lot of gamers out there who really and truly cannot stand the left. They really and truly hate social justice warriors. But they oftentimes don't vote Republican. They oftentimes vote moderate Democrat, or for a moderate Democrat, or in a lot of ways, they may vote third party. These are people who, for the most part, are relatively socially conservative and really relatively fiscally conservative as well. But they don't want to vote for Republicans because of people like Matt Walsh. Now, you're probably asking yourself a question, and once again, haven't you defended Matt Walsh before? Yes, I have. I defended Matt Walsh on the whole, this guy here. I defended him on that whole topic there, and I also defended him in his messaging on that. However, outside the whole gender thing, I really and truly don't think Matt Walsh has that much of a use, especially given the fact that people love to call him a Trump supporter, but yet here he was simping for Mitt Romney to be in Trump's cabinet. Here he was voting for Evan McMullin. And here he is, of course, attacking Trump supporters shortly after Ron DeSantis announces he's running for president. Yeah. Not exactly somebody that a lot of conservatives like to claim. Matt just simply says the things out loud that, quite frankly, we already know. What is a Woman was a masterpiece, but really, dude, exactly how hard is it to prove to these people that a woman, of course, is an adult human female, a biological female? It's really and truly not that hard to do. What do we do as a result of this? Well, what needs to happen is that we need to be preaching moderation here rather than passing judgment on gamers themselves. That Night's Watch video that will be in the description box is actually a very good response to Matt. Very sane, very rational. He even pulls out the Bible and actually explains exactly what the Apostle Paul was talking about when he talked about when I was a child, I thought of a child when I did childish things. And of course, when you get older, playing video games is not really and truly what we call a childish thing. Video games, for the most part, are a hobby and sometimes even a vice. I have a PlayStation 4, I have a PlayStation 3. I play video games from time to time, especially when I'm bored. But there's also times where I don't play a game. You see, the thing is this right here, the key word, key phrase here is moderation. However, you can split moderation away from the attack lines that the much, much more, let's just say, suburban-looking conservatives out there, you can kind of split that away from the overall attack line on video games, meaning that you can need to be preaching moderation, doing it every now and again, rather than calling gamers lazy and telling gamers that they have no life. I also think that the way Matt comes off is also, well, let's just say, the way he comes off, he ends up sounding like an old boomercon, but it's pretty obvious based upon his face and his facial expressions that he's really just a guy who's only been laid 5 times to have 6 kids. It's an old joke that we use down south. Anytime a woman has a bunch of kids within a short span of her life, we automatically assume that her husband, every time he lets one loose, it automatically gets her pregnant, meaning that they probably had only been laid a very, very small amount of times. I mean, dude, look at the guy's facial expressions. Does this right here strike you as the type of person that is, how do I say, fun to be around? He just seems to me like an absolute killjoy.
First of all, I'm not seeing any coins to collect. Are there any, like, mushrooms that will make me grow tall or help me fly?
Not in war.
How do I shoot? You broke the rules of engagement. Don't shoot first. What is the fun of a video game where you can't shoot first? We're letting out our violent fantasies so we don't do it in real life.
If I didn't say it already, a lot of lessons can be learned from video games. Matt, he learned a very good one there with Call of Duty when he killed a friendly. Obviously, the game was over. We learned that when we're in the military. You're not supposed to shoot friendlies. Or, in Grand Theft Auto, where he decided that he wanted to basically try to outrun the cops there, and eventually they capped him. You can learn a lot of very good life lessons from video games. I just figured I'd point that out before we go any further. But there's a lot more to this. You see, given some of the recent information, the things that I'm saying about gaming being good in moderation, apparently that was at one point in time on the Daily Wire's website. Make sure you guys watch these next few
Different
minutes.
guy who had just said animes for P words. I don't remember what his name was. He's another Republican weirdo. What is this guy's name? Jackson Hinkle tweeting this. People forget, I grew up with Jack Thompson, another Christian conservative that got disbarred essentially in his crusade over video games. I lived through Magic the Gathering's having to change the Unholy Strength card because there was a pentagram on it because of Christian conservatives. These are the reasons I was liberal when I was young. This type of thinking is why conservatives continue to lose. It's mail-in balloting all over again. When you make statements like this, you alienate plenty of Republican voters or conservative voters that may not consider themselves conservatives. That's where I'm at. I vote Republican, but I don't call myself a conservative. Never have. It's because I have my own individual ideas. And so I said, this is a tweet from May 1st, and Matt's been melting down ever since because of it. Said the right's weird obsession with disavowing video games, anime, and social media is why it will never appeal to most of Gen Z. The base is literally dying off, and most of the voices in the community are actively refusing recruits. That's true.
What's your opinion on anime? It's really popular amongst teens and young adults. I think it's all satanic. I have no argument for it. I have no argument for why it's satanic. It just seems that way to me. All anime to me seems weird, just like bizarre, creepy. And in general, I don't think that adults should be, whether it's anime or any other kind of cartoon, with rare exception, adults really shouldn't be watching cartoons in general.
What? So we can't watch Family Guy because Matt Walsh says it's satanic, or we can't watch Naruto, or you can't watch any of your favorite anime. I'm not a big anime guy, but I'm not stupid. I wouldn't tell my viewers like, oh my God, if you watch anime, you're an idiot. Or that's satanic. You shouldn't be watching that. Grown adults don't watch anime. Bro, I got news for you. They do. And more grown adults watch anime than watch Hollywood. If the right embraced this and understood this, maybe they wouldn't be so confused how communists are getting in their kids' ears all the time. And here's the article, and again, this is not just Matt Walsh. I'm going to talk about Jack Thompson and all these other people on the right that actively push people who would happily vote for a Republican away, okay? Here he says, stop pretending violent video games are harmless just because you like playing them. Now, this is an old article. This is from 2018. Perhaps between then and now, he has changed his opinion. But I find it curious that the Daily Wire deleted that.
Is it possible that the Daily Wire is exactly what I've always thought it was? That it was an organization designed to keep conservatives conservative? Also, when Matt says he's recruited more conservatives than Jeremy has, I'm not so sure about that. You see, when Matt does these town halls, or when he did those town halls in Northern Virginia, we didn't really see him beyond that one that he did. He goes out there, he talks to a bunch of parents. By the way, Northern Virginia is very, very, very Democratic. And of course, these Democrats that are in the audience who are concerned about their kids are mostly moderate to conservative Democrats. They primarily voted Democrat to get Trump out of office because, well, orange man bad, I guess is what they thought. They figured they would do that. And of course, the minute that he leaves office, next thing you know, CRT, gender studies and everything enters the classrooms and goes after fourth and fifth graders, goes after third graders. It does that. That's what they did. They did that, and obviously Matt was the person to stand up to the mob and say something. But outside that one time and going on Dr. Phil and making what is a woman, I mean, I really and truly can't see where he's really that much use. He's just mostly just the common milquetoast conservative out there. And of course, based upon his support for Mitt Romney and the fact that he voted for Evan McMullin, you got to question exactly where his motivations really and truly lie. Now, am I saying this video because I dislike Matt Walsh? Well, I've let you guys know on several occasions that I do have disagreements with him. And some of these disagreements come really mostly in the form of the way he acts, the way he responds, and how it is that he says things like, well, you want to debate me? Well, with all due respect, I've got a lot more followers than you. Very, very interesting. I mean, it's not hard to say that a man is a man and a woman is a woman. So kudos to Jeremy for being based on this issue. Video games can be a good thing. Video games, especially given the fact if you actually play video games with your child, can actually be a great experience. You can have a lot of fun together. The problem is moderation. The problem is letting the video game raise your child. That's the actual problem here. That's the actual issue. Anytime somebody like Jack Thompson would come out there and scream and holler and raise hell about video games like Mortal Kombat and then eventually Grand Theft Auto, people would just get turned off. It reminded people of the satanic panic of the 1980s. That right there is what the hell it reminded people of. Of course, after a while, you find out that a good portion of those artists put pentagrams and pinnacle stars and all this imagery on their albums to sell records. I wonder how many of those people were actual, honest-to-God Satan worshipers talking about the rock stars. Well, if you actually look into their history and listen to some of their interviews, you'll find out that that was actually an extremely small amount of musicians at that time. An extremely small amount, mostly doing things to sell records. Rappers pointing guns at the screen, rapping about big screen TVs, bitches, blunts, 40s, all that stuff. That was mostly done to sell records. Now, granted, I don't condone all the activity, but I understand what they are doing. After a while, you have to be able to separate yourself and say this is all being done to sell records. Don't take this entire thing seriously. It's not really truly that hard to do. However, there is one more thing that I want to say before I get to anime, which, by the way, is probably going to be one of the later sections of the video, because obviously this video is going on a little bit longer than I thought. I need to say this. Video games do not create stupid people. They don't create crazies at all. They may make someone who's already crazy somewhat more creative, or make someone who may be already somewhat stupid do stupid things, but they don't create stupid people. I just figure I would go ahead and throw that out there.
You have me on the anime point, however. As we all know, I do literally think that anime is demonic, and every single person who has ever watched it has become possessed by the devil. Literally, that's what I think.
Now, guys, I'm really and truly not much of an anime guy. I really and truly am not much of an anime person at all. However, you gotta give Eastern storytelling some credit. These people actually tell some very good stories. As far as the anime bros are concerned, I've been around a lot of people who are like the anime geeks, the anime dorks, and my thing is this right here. We should love geeks. We should love dorks. As a matter of fact, I'm actually a bit of a nerd at heart myself. Nerds are actually good people. You know, if you leave them alone, whatnot, they play a video game, they go to work or whatever, they're typically very nice. They're not mean to anybody. They're just nerds. Stop beating up on the nerds. Also, something else, too, about those nerds, which, by the way, Matt Walsh looks like, I'll put it this way here. Walsh just looks like an unpleasant person to be around. And his voice, too, makes me think he's trying to imitate Alex Jones. I wouldn't take attacks from this guy serious. I mean, he's just this one guy who's got a stick up his ass out of many others. Of course, Ben Shapiro has also got one up his ass as well. The only person that the Daily Wire actually like is really Michael Knowles. Jordan Peterson's okay, but sometimes he can be a little bit cringy, too. I just figured I'd throw that out there. I need to say this, though, before I close this video. The United States distributes more pop culture than any nation on earth. Hollywood distributes more movies, more film than anyone else out there. We distribute more music than anyone else. We, for the most part, distribute more overall storytelling than anybody else. Now, the world itself is not exactly down with the whole SJW stuff. They're not exactly with it. They don't like the BLM thing. They don't like the pride stuff. They never have liked it. And you're probably thinking to yourself, well, to the world be damned. But yet we're trying to distribute this on a global level. The thing is this right here, pop culture does in fact matter, and I'll be explaining that more in a video project I have coming up, simply titled, Why Pop Culture Matters. Why in the world are commies getting into our kids' ears? Well, they're doing it through the medium of pop culture. However, there is this thing here in the United States called freedom of speech. There is this platform here called YouTube. There's a platform called Rumble. There's a lot of alt tech out there where you can make reviews calling out movies for their SJW messaging. You see, if people don't go watch the film, or if people are automatically turned off by the film, and if it doesn't have good word of mouth, then after a while, the movie companies, they begin to lose money. Hollywood loses money itself, and after a while, writers get replaced. They bring in better writers, and then they turn right back around and make content that we actually like to watch. Pop culture is, in fact, worth saving. Now, I'm not saying that Hollywood actors are worth saving. I'm not saying that at all. But pop culture itself, for the most part, is worth saving. I mean, how the hell do you think that Vladimir Lenin and Stalin, if I did not already say this before at some point in time in this video, how the hell do you think they were able to get through to the masses? They used the film industry. The good thing is that here in the United States, like I said before, we have this thing called freedom of speech. We have the freedom to call these people out. And thank God, channels like Razor Fist, Eric D. July, you've got, I think it's Overlord DVD. I think that guy's also named Doomcock. I'm not entirely sure. You've got Jeremy, you've got Ryan Kennel. You've got Yellow Flash, you've got the Quartering, you've got a lot of people out there who call this nonsense out. But there's something you need to understand. Most of these people are not Republicans. They're a little bit more socially conservative. And a lot of times they vote, and sometimes they don't vote. They prefer to vote for Republican, but if you're going to sit here and pass judgment on them, or pass judgment on their work, or pass judgment on the fact that they like to play a video game every now and again, without actually mentioning the fact that this little thing called moderation needs to be preached, which as I've said on multiple occasions is probably the best way to go, the best route to go about this, they're probably not going to want to vote for you, because now all of a sudden you kind of taint the Republican brand by coming out here and basically being a tyrannical or a boring asshole there, Matt. Fact of the matter is that you actually turn voters off with this type of rhetoric. All right, and then you turn right back around and play video games, and we get to look at your face, and a lot of points that we try to make all the time actually get proven by your mistakes. My personal favorite one is the Grand Theft Auto one, where he was playing and he decided to pull out a rifle and just start capping people left and right, and when he did that, the cop showed up and got him. You can learn a lot of very, very, very valuable life lessons through the medium of video games, Matt. I just wish you didn't have a great big giant block of wood up your ass so that way you could see it. Guys, John Claymore here. If you like this content, please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sound off in the comment section. If you think I've earned your subscription, please hit that subscribe button, please hit the notification bell, share the video, and please leave a comment, and I'll see you guys later.